All right, welcome to the show. I got with me John Sullivan and Mike Bloom. How you guys doing?
Doing great, man. How
Wonderful.
about you?
I'm doing awesome. I am doing awesome. So, before we get started, John, I'm going to start with you. I'm sorry, not before we get started, but before we get into what you guys do, I just want to get to know you a little bit better. So, John, what's your history with gaming? Where did it all start?
Well, as a kid, I really sucked at video games, but I think I got my first Nintendo probably like 8, 9 years old. I more or less got it because I was the only kid in the neighborhood whose parents would buy them a Nintendo, but it mostly was used by all my friends, and I think that's why I like it now. Since pretty much I started collecting games and really getting hardcore into them about 5 or 6 years ago, and I think most of it's kind of related to me being terrible at them when I was a kid and setting out to right my wronged childhood. So
Is that a Super Mario Brothers arcade machine behind you?
it sure is. Yeah, it's a Play Choice 10. So it got a bunch of Nintendo games in there.
Very cool. Very cool. And Mike, how about you, man? Where did it start for you?
I've been into games forever. I was always actually pretty good at them. But in fact, I was one of the kids at John's house messing with his stuff too. But no, I was into games forever. I mean, I remember having a Commodore 64 and Atari and all that stuff. And I remember, I think I even started probably first playing games on my uncle's Intellivision. So yeah, it's been there for me forever. Nintendo was awesome, but I was big into going to arcades. I dragged my parents to the arcades, and play. But yeah, I was always big in, and I never stopped. So it's
Gotcha.
it's it's a fun thing to do, man.
For sure. Do you got a favorite game?
You know what? Not really. I'm really into anything. I don't really have a specific genre that I like. I do play shooters, but I also play side scrollers. I play RPGs, like stat building, all that stuff. I really like Borderlands. I'm playing that right now. I've done the Destiny thing for a little while now too, and I like the competitive shooters, but I also like goofy stuff like side-scrolling action. Like right now I'm playing with my kids. I'm playing Charlie Murder. I don't know if you ever heard of that. It's a DLC downloadable arcade title on 360. So I'll play anything really. I really like stuff with a good art style. So
Okay. John, how about you? Do you got a favorite?
Yeah, I'm really into RPGs. I play a lot of old school RPGs, but I think my favorite game of all time has got to be Rogue Galaxy for the PS2. It was a RPG that did not get enough credit. But when my wife was pregnant with our second child, we played through the entire game together. A good 60 hours. We completed it and bested it, and it's just one of the greatest games I've ever played. That definitely deserves a sequel.
I see. Very cool. Now, again, I see on top of that arcade cabinet, there's a bunch of Super Nintendo games. Is that correct?
Yeah, those are my some of my favorite Super Nintendo RPGs. I collect games. I have probably over 1,100 games. Um, I love most of my RPGs are displayed, so I think I got like my Breath of Fires up there, my Earthbound, Final Fantasies, Shadowrun, Landstalker, Secret of Mana. Love the RPGs.
Okay, very cool. So let me ask, what's your most like, what piece in your collection are you the most stoked about?
Hmm. Well, I think my favorite, I'd say a tie between two. I have Panic Restaurant for the NES, which is a game I bought for a super good price a long time ago. That has gone up incredibly in value. It's one of the few rare games that's actually really fun to play.
Mm-hmm.
But I also like to play reproduction carts of games that never came to America. So someone will patch it with a translation and actually put it on a Super Nintendo cart, and I could play it in my original SNES. Um, I have Terranigma, which is one of the Quintet games, which is just an amazing game that we never got here in the West, which is an amazing game.
Yeah, very cool. Very cool. Well, hey guys, let's get into your project now. What is it that you guys are working on?
Take it away, Mike.
We're working on a card battle game. I'm sorry, called Mario Italiano for Families, and this was kind of our baby from over 10 years ago, where we actually started it as a comic book, and John and I's roots together kind of stem from that. We built this comic book world, probably 12 years ago at this point, when we were younger, and we kind of got off track with that, and years and years go by, we start families and careers, and then it was time to get back into it, and we were motivated to make it into this card battle game, and that's what we've been doing for the last about 3 years now. But go ahead, John, if anything you want to add to that.
No, other than so Michael was really into these card battle games on the iPhone, and I think at that point, I was pretty much only playing old school games, and he had kind of pitched it to me at he was having like a birthday party at his house, and I had recently moved back. I was gone for a long time. I lived in California, Las Vegas, Florida, and I had finally moved back to the Midwest, and he kind of pitched this idea, on a napkin about doing a card battle game, and I wasn't super familiar with the genre. I mean, I knew regular deck playing games like Pokemon and Magic the Gathering, but I'd never really played much of them. Then he kind of showed me some of the games he was playing, and thought it would be perfect for what we had done with the comic, because when he says we developed this comic book world, I mean we had drawn hundreds of characters and just notebooks of backstory on all these characters. So we had a pretty good grasp on what the world was. And we just felt we had enough content and enough, quirky, funny story that we could really build it into an awesome card battle game that was different than what anybody else was doing, because most of these are in the high fantasy, Middle Ages, magic and all that kind of stuff, and that's something that it's just been done a lot, and so it's easy to get kind of lost in the shuffle. And we wanted to do something where we brought this quirky style that has our drawing style, and also that just would be totally separate from what was currently on the market. So
yeah, it was kind of cool because we didn't really decide, okay, let's make a card battle game, and now we have to come up with a story and content for it. We basically said, we've got our baby here that's been sitting on the shelf and would fit into this, and so let's adapt what we've already created into a genre that would work with it. So that was kind of a unique take, instead of kind of worked our way backwards into it, and it's become pretty cool.
Yeah, is it currently available?
No, not yet. Probably within the month or so.
Okay.
Yeah, we're just about to launch our beta. So if anybody wanted to, we're actually taking beta testers. We're up on preapps.com. And people have the opportunity to kind of to just sign up there and give us their email, and we'll send them a code to sign up for the beta. Because right now we're kind of in a soft beta. We're just trying to work out some of the bugs just before we launch it into beta, and shortly after that, then we plan on releasing the game. So we're right on the heels of it.
Very cool. And what platforms you guys hoping to get out on?
We're going to start with iOS. Sorry, John. We're going to start with iOS, and we want to port to Android. But, hopefully we can find some success on iOS quickly and then get ported over. Basically, this is all coming out of our pockets. We didn't seek investors. We didn't do a Kickstarter. It's just basically took our own cash and built this game. So it just wasn't in the cards to do an Android version right away. It's kind of a crazy port, and just a lot of work and a lot of effort there that we hope to be able to accomplish quickly after launch, but initial launch will just be on the iPhone.
I see. And do you guys, John, you'd said Mike was kind of into these card games. Mike, what are some of the ones that you played, or maybe kind of got some inspiration from?
As far as the play mechanics and stuff, I was playing a game called Dark Summoner at the time, and it's weird because I had never played these games before either, and a couple guys at work started playing it, and these games are very social, so they wanted me in so that I could trade cards with them, this and that. Well, next thing you know, I start getting rapidly addicted to this game, and then I found others along the way. But that's kind of what started it for me, as far as this type of game.
I see. I had a buddy who was into the Marvel one, and then he was like, "Yeah,
Sure.
I'm spending like $350 a month on it." I'm like,
Yeah.
I want nothing to do with that."
Yeah, for real, man. I think yeah, I had a couple months like that too. I think I had probably like $700 into my account in a year or so, and I was like, oh man, what am I doing? It's brutal.
Yeah, my wife would leave
It's
me.
crazy.
So.
Yeah, crazy stuff, man. That was kind of inspirational too, but like, hey man, maybe there's something to be done here.
Yeah.
But whatever. It's fun.
So, do you guys have a background? Do one of you guys have a background in building apps or doing that kind of thing, or how did that come about?
Go ahead, John.
Well, as far as making games, I had a little experience making games before. I had made a point and click adventure in a platform called Adventure Game Studio, and I played around with a lot of these little game building things. Gameplay mechanics always fascinated me, but one of the things that we kind of didn't really mention is, so as far as like the core of this game, Michael and I came up with, basically generated all the content, all the story, all of the stats for battling, all that mechanics. But we actually we brought some people in as far as on the programming end. So neither of us are actually programming the app or have experience with that. So we're actually working with an outside company.
Okay, well that's cool. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that at all. What was that process like then? How did you guys go about finding somebody? Was it like eDesk or something like that, or?
Is hell.
Yeah, it was kind of crazy. Yeah, here's the thing. Okay, so I pitched this idea to John, and we're like, okay, yeah, all right, you're in. Okay, cool, because I'm not gonna be able to do this by myself, So we were good at drawing, and we drew comics, and we could use Photoshop, but and I know John had dabbled in animation a little bit in some of the stuff he did when he left the state and moved away for a bit, but we really were kind of clueless. So I got to tell you, with all confidence, everything you need to know to do something like this can be found on Google or YouTube, or the resources that are out there, especially just as free resources, are incredible. So we just kind of started. And as soon as we thought we had a grasp on, the concept and had enough there that we could pitch it, and I started shopping for a firm to do the coding. And I was shopping based on my budget, and that might have been one of the first mistakes. At the time I had said, okay, I'll spend this much, and we shopped based on that, and we picked somebody that had a good track record and had good reviews at the time, and 2 years in, they ended up basically breaking contract with us and demanding 4 times what we had agreed on. And at that point, what do? Do you kill the project? Do you take them to court? Do you fight for your money, or do you just take what you have and pick it up and keep going? So that's what we ended up doing. We really just wanted to see the game come to be. So after all said and done, we ended up having to find a new place, and I had to take out a 401k loan and spend a bunch more money and finally get this thing done. But yeah, when we started, we didn't really have any clue of what we were doing, and we just kind of learned along the way anything above and beyond that we needed to do. And so yeah, I got to tell you, it can be done. We've built a very solid game, knowing very little to begin with.
Yeah, and as far as trying to find a company that would even work with us to code the game, because a lot of companies, they were afraid to work with a 2-man team. I think that these companies get approached probably thousands of times a day by small teams, and they get worried that we don't know anything about the industry. A lot of companies were very hesitant because we don't have a programmer on staff. We don't really know they didn't feel like we knew what we were capable of. I mean, and one of the big things that we were really trying to do, so many companies just felt like they couldn't program the scope of the game. They felt like, that's the one piece of advice we never followed on any of these forums where, start small. Everyone kept telling us, everything says start small. Don't do a massive social game the first time around. Don't do something that's huge in scope. And we did not follow that advice because we wanted to go. We wanted to go big, and a lot of the companies that we wanted to, that we approached about programming the game, they wouldn't. It was too big for them. I mean, the companies were just like, we can't do that. What you're talking about doing it's too social, it's too interactive, it's too many numbers, too many stats, and we just don't want to do it.
So was that back to the drawing board then, or did you keep looking until somebody said yes?
Yeah, basically, I just kept sending out emails and having meetings, and finally found somebody that thought they understood what we needed, and ended up not, and that's when everything fell apart. And even currently, that is a challenge because, I don't hear of many people doing this. Most people seek out these type of firms when they have a small app they need done for their business, and they can handle everything. They're going to do the design, they're going to do the entire thing for them. We didn't realize how hard it would be to not have to actually internally hire programmers and create a studio to develop something like this. We figured we could just sublet it out, and we ended up doing it, but it was definitely not as easy as we thought. Now, we're with a company right now that is pretty large and very reputable, and they're awesome, they're excellent. But even that said, and they have a very good track record, this is still the biggest project they've ever undertook, period, even on their own first-party games. So, yeah, it was a little crazy what we ended up doing. But, no, we eventually we found somebody, we thought that was working, and it didn't work out so well, and we took what we had, what they produced, and went somewhere else, and they've finished it up over the last year. So,
yeah, what was great about after things fell apart with the first company we had contracted, it actually was much easier to shop the game because we actually did have some code. We had a very, very, very rough alpha. Our content was pretty much 85% done. The shopping the game the second time around wasn't nearly as hard. And we actually had options. So some of the companies, I think, like the company that we're currently using, I don't think that they would have taken us the first time around because of their size, just because they wouldn't have faith that we could generate the content and generate everything that they need. But I think we showed them pretty clearly that we were familiar with the structure and generating the content that we need, and really, coming up with. We had a full design doc. I mean, the design doc for this game was the size of a phone book. I mean, we really had every aspect of the game covered, and we realized at that point how large of a project it was. So it was easier.
So let's break down this process then. You said you had a doc the size of a phone book.
Yeah.
Break that up for me. Where did it start? What was what are the steps in that process to getting something like this done that you can then hand to a developer and say, okay, this is what we want?
Sure. Part of it is, first and foremost, they want to know you got to build every screen. And that was something we didn't anticipate or at least I didn't in my head when we originally started this thing. Every screen, I'm talking every pop-up, every screen, every listing, how it's going to lay out, everything that the player is ever going to see has to be built. So the first thing that they want to see is they want to see wireframes for all that. So we had to build wireframes for every section of the game, every screen in sequence, and provide that. Then you've got to generate every rule, every equation, everything, and that's before you even get into the design work of creating 300 cards and putting a face on all your wireframes and generating them digitally with buttons and making them look clean and building a UI and all that stuff. So, before that, basically you have to have a dock that covers your concept. You have to have a dock that covers each section of your concept, and then you have to, the first thing they wanted was wireframes. They knew exactly how many screens they were building, what the flow was going to look like, and how it all interacted.
Yeah, you had to go. We had to know what happened every time you pushed any button in the game, and then after that, the really treacherous part. Like when you play an RPG, there's a lot of stats involved, but you don't really see those stats. Sometimes you get these like Brady's player guides that show you all the stats and how your character's level. Well, we had to sit down and look at every one of our cards and figure out, okay, what are the base stats? How are they going to level? At what point? At what point of experience are they going to get before they level? And another thing that we have in the game that I haven't seen any of these other card games have is we have like item slots that you can add on top of each card, which then augment the stats even further. So figuring out how to evenly level the game with the just mass amount of characters that we had, figuring out which classes to kind of break them into, because of course, because we're not making the typical RPG, any of these card games, you have your your mages, that kind of like every RPG, no matter what, kind of has that structure where you have these different classes. So we had to kind of figure out the classes of each character, what we were going to do with them, how they were going to level, and I think those numbers. Thankfully, Michael is extremely good at math. I, on the other hand, failed algebra and almost didn't graduate because I had to actually go back and get my diploma by taking some applied math class in college. So thankfully, Michael's a genius and he could do all this stuff. And then he would ask me about things and I would just nod my head, that makes sense, and it ended up getting worked out. So.
So you guys mentioned having to build the wireframes. What did you build those in?
You know what? To tell you the truth, this is going to almost be embarrassing, but I hand drew them. At that point, it was much quicker for me to use my ruler, my hands, than it was for me to go in and build thousands of screens in Photoshop. So once I had those wireframes, that's what I worked off of to then go into Photoshop and build the screens and slice the screens and provide the buttons and the backgrounds and everything else you'll see. Build the layouts. So everything started by me generating it by hand.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. And so from drawing it and then taking it into Photoshop, that's great. So what was next after you handed them the wireframe and everything like that?
Then we started working section by section. So we take let's just say we're going to take the deck where all your cards are displayed. Now I have to build those screens. So then I would build the screens and give them PSDs, which is a layered file format for Photoshop, and they would go ahead and make those buttons react how they were supposed to, provide the text where it's supposed to be, where the stats would be, and they basically built the face using my screens. So like I said, this was another challenge, I think, for working as a team with outside programmers, because you're basically taking all their creative control of the visuals and things that they might think would be easier for them away from them. You're basically saying, okay, this is exactly how it's going to look. Now make it work in the back end. So there can be a big communication issue there if you're not very clear with them. And there's a lot of late night meetings via Skype and sharing screens to get things right. And I think the first team's communication skills were not what the current teams are, and I think that's where a lot of it just got way out of control. But yeah, when you're providing all design assets to a firm that would normally do all of it, that can get kind of sticky. But it can be done. You just got to find the right people.
Yeah, and part of it too is Michael is definitely a perfectionist, and he had played enough of these. And at this point I've played quite a few of these games as well, but he knew exactly how he wanted it to play, because one of the things we were also setting out to do is kind of change some of the things that are kind of like clunky, or things that basically suck about these games, things that we as players are like, man, this is kind of crappy. And so a lot of those things are done because they're easier. And there were things where Michael just would not let them change the way something was done, just because it'd be easier to program. So they had to, they really had to conform to our design doc, and they'd say, well, shouldn't we do this? And sometimes they had good advice, but sometimes it was really just a matter of them, you know, wanting to do something that was a little bit easier, because I mean, who wouldn't want to do that if you're doing the work? So I think that was posed a challenge for them to have to work against our rigid, design standards.
Were you guys kind of taken back, like when you went to when you pitched this to the first company and they said, okay, we're gonna need this, were you guys
Yeah.
like, what? Like, we just want to
Yeah,
make a game.
absolutely.
Here's our idea. Just do it. Like.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I like I said, I even in a bunch of our blog stuff, I even cite that if I knew any of what I know now of what this would have taken, I probably would have never started it. I would have been so scared. But yeah, I think that's what got us to do this, though. Our lack of knowledge, our naiveness at the point of starting this is what gave us the courage to go forth with it. Because yeah, knowing what I know now, you got a lot more preparing to do, to be way ahead of where we were when we decided to do this.
Yeah. We approached a firm at a very early stage. I mean, just how much. I mean, and literally when we are approaching 3 years of working on this project, and I mean, Michael and I both have families. I have 3 kids. He has 2 kids, and I mean, our wives are going to be so happy when this thing is over, because we're spending, I mean, 4 to 7 hours. I mean, my every Friday, I stay up until at least 3 or 4 in the morning, and it's been like this now for 3 years, working on this game. That is every single Friday, not to mention the late nights. I mean, I've become so accustomed to sleeping, off, functioning off of 4 or 5 hours of sleep. I don't know what it's going to be like when we launch this thing, and I don't have it to work on anymore. I've rewired my body and my brain to just be deprived of sleep. So.
Well, that's when the sequel starts. Once it launches, I mean. Right?
Yeah, there should be updates.
That's when the updates start. For sure.
But yeah, he's right. I mean, when I remember, that's another thing. We kind of got pushed to keep working, because all of a sudden we're in this contract, and I spend tens of thousands of dollars, and we're in now. So I'm like, okay, we got to do it now. There's no turning back. So when they say, okay, we're going to need you to actually build those 1,000 screens or whatever there is, I'm like, what? We're thinking, okay, we're providing the design docs, and they'll be able to just get this done based upon what we're saying. No. You've got to do everything now. So yeah, at the time, I've been lucky enough to, a year ago, change jobs within my profession to be able to have the freedom to work from home, so everything became easier. But at the time, I was working 70 hours a week in sales, coming home at 9 o'clock, kids and wife are in bed, I'd stay up till 2 working on screens just to get up and do it all the next day. So yeah, I mean, I think my work schedule was more heavily weighted when we first started this, and now John has picked up some of the stuff that he's more comfortable with doing towards the end, and he's had the bulk of the issues here with the late nights, so we've kind of been able to balance each other out. But yeah, it's just been a tremendous amount of work. But when you enjoy something and it's your passion and it's your dream coming to life, you're willing to put in the work, so it is what it is.
Yeah, well, hopefully it'll be worth it for your wives when they're sitting on a beach somewhere with a fancy drink and an umbrella in it, right?
I sure hope so.
We can only hope, right? Because that's what it's going to take.
Very cool, guys. This is awesome. So let me ask you, what have been, and I know we've kind of been touching on some of this stuff, but what have been some of the mistakes or the lessons learned along the way that you can share with us?
Sure, go ahead, John.
Well, I think as Michael kind of touched on earlier, knowing, like, don't just look for someone who can do something on your budget, because when we got our quotes on the first time around, we should have been fishy that their quote was like half the amount of everybody else's. So that was a kind of a huge mistake, and the biggest lesson I think I've learned out of this is expect delays. I mean, I will never ever shame a game for coming out past when it was promised, because we thought we were going to be done with this game about 24 months ago. So we're running about 2 years over schedule. We just had just the kinds of hang-ups that you don't anticipate, and and then of course the platform that we're working on with iOS, the platform's changed. So then we've had to up resolution as to match where the actual devices are going. I mean, we've gone from generation 4 to 6 just in the process here, and so having to meet those updates and stuff along the way, and then communication errors, and even at our current firm that we're working with, there's been some project management changes because someone gets promoted. Well, those sorts of things, I mean, that could put you back a month. I mean, it's not like you lost the eyes and ears of your project, and it's like good for them because they got promoted, but at the same time, you're now spending a month trying to explain to the new project manager, this is what we've done. This is you're trying to get someone caught up, and that's happened to us. I mean, Michael, how many project managers do you think we've been through?
Four times.
Four.
3 on the first and 1 on the second firm, and it's basically been a 2-month reset or 3-month reset every time that switch has happened, if not worse, And then ultimately down the road, you find out that you thought they knew something and they didn't. But with the current firm, that hasn't been too much of an issue. But the first place, that delayed us probably a total of a year just in what they were doing. But you know what? All that said, all the hardships we've went through and all the frustrations, if you're passionate about something and you want it to happen, you can make it happen. I mean, literally every time we came up against an obstacle, we figured out a way to get over it. And usually it made the game better, and it made us better. The things we've learned over these 3 years, I mean, the journey was just amazing. I mean, we are so good at what we're doing now. We've got skills that we never would have imagined we'd have. The next time around doing this is going to be so easy compared to this. So it's been very rewarding. We're sitting here giving you all the woes because those are the lessons we've learned. But there's also been a lot of good lessons we've learned, and some of the stuff that you could share is just if you're passionate about something, just make it happen. Don't doubt yourself. Just keep moving forward, and you'll eventually find the right path.
Yeah. But is that Malcolm Gladwell that says do 10,000 hours of something to master it? Well, we've put our 10,000 hours in, and we really feel like we got a hang of it at this point.
Yeah. And if you're going to spend, when you're spending your money on a budget as an indie team, if it's something you or your partner or whoever else would enjoy learning, learn it and do it yourself. If you don't and you don't want to, that's where you spend your money. Don't torture yourself over something like sound if you have no interest in producing sound. Find a sound guy. They're out there. We found a great sound guy. A friend of a friend. The guy is brilliant, and it was one of his first projects, and he was able to come up with a price that I could afford, and I mean, I'm ecstatic with what he did with the game. So, just look for your resources where you don't want to provide them, and everywhere you would be happy learning, learn it, do it. You'll never regret learning the skill.
Yeah, that's great advice. You basically answered my next question. Was what was some of the best advice you've received or that you can give? And do you have anything you could add to that? Because that was all great stuff.
Just never give up. Never give up. So both Michael and I are very heavy into I don't know if you call it like motivational speakers. I think that's something that we've really become much more in tune with along the way. I mean, I think some of the greatest resources we've had have not been from advice from game makers or from indie dev teams. It's been from Tony Robbins or Tim Ferriss or James Altucher or all these podcasts and blogs that we read just to see people who've either done something great and courageous, people who've lost it all and sprung back, and just really realizing how human determination will get you to where you need to be. So
Very cool. Very cool. So that kind of ties into my next question too, a little bit. What are some resources, either books or websites that you guys would recommend? Maybe you can each give one. John, you want to start?
Yeah, well, I would say we went to GDC. We went to a GDC. I think that GDC can be, especially if you're just kind of starting out, it's a really good way to to go to to just look at the videos online that are even available from past game developers conferences. You can find topics that that pertain to you. I mean, we watched so many, whether it went to search engine optimization to UI design. There's just talks available on YouTube or through like the GDC pages. So that really were very, very helpful for us.
Cool. Mike, how about you?
Yeah, every time I've hit a snag, it's amazing what you can find on Google or YouTube. I mean, even if it comes to design stuff, which we're very good at. If I want to learn a new style for digitally painting, which we started transitioning to at the end of our design, you can go on YouTube and find some pros that are offering free tutorials and learn that skill. Same thing with Google. If you want to know something about marketing, type it in a bunch of different ways until you find what you got, what you need, and there's stuff all over. But yeah, attending conferences like that was great. We've hit up as many of those as we can, and it's amazing that in game development, I mean, we come from corporate sales, and in that business world, everybody's trying to hide their secrets because it's like a game of competition, and so you go to those summits and you don't really produce anything good out of them. But with the gaming world, everybody is friendly. They're not hiding anything from you. They want you to succeed. Everybody is cool like that. So just, if it's not on social media, hit up Google, hit up YouTube. Anything you really need to know that you don't can be taught right from those sources for free.
Yeah, we've gone straight to developers we've seen their indie game, and we've hit them up on Twitter. Just this community of indie game developers has just been fantastic. Everyone looks out for each other, and we've had no shortage of advice when we asked. And I think that's another lesson too. It's like if you don't ask, you won't find out. And we couldn't believe how many people were so willing to just tell us everything they did to market their game or everything they did in some other area just because we asked. So we're really impressed. Again, coming from corporate sales, both of us, it's not that way. Everyone's hiding everything, and it really was kind of a lesson that this is definitely a community that we want to stay a part of because it aligns much more with who we are as people,
Yeah.
and we're forever grateful. And we'll certainly, which we're trying to do with our blog right now, is dispense all of the great advice that we've learned because we've gotten so much along the way, and we want to be able to help other budding into game developers like we've been helped along the way.
Very cool. Very cool. So my last question for you guys, this is kind of the fun one, and Mike, we're going to start with you, and is what would you tell 18-year-old Mike if he walked up to you and said, I want to get into the gaming industry?
That's awesome. Probably don't be scared. I knew I was destined for something like this back then, and the world is a hard place sometimes because I was pushed to make money and be able to start a family, and that's what I really wanted to do and be able to support myself, and I just didn't see it happening in that career, and it took me till I'm 34 to finally get up the courage to try to get back into something I enjoy doing. So yeah, if you're young like that and you've got nothing to lose, go for it. Follow what you want to do. because you're never going to have a better opportunity when you have no responsibility at the current point. It's much harder when you have a mortgage and car payments and 2 kids and a wife that you are responsible to support, to take a risk like this, and you have much less time to do so. So if you can, if at 18 years old you have an idea of something that might make you enjoy your life as a career, go for it.
Very cool. John, how about you, buddy? What would you tell 18-year-old John?
Don't get discouraged, really. I mean, just expect to fail, and those failures are going to make you stronger, because there's times where, I know I've cried along the way, just the pure frustration and how overwhelming things could be, or how many times we thought it's over. I mean, there's been probably at least 3 points during this game where we were like, it's over, and staying positive. Thankfully, having a partner and having my brother-in-law being the one I'm working with, just being able to have that back and forth and that support, because every time we got knocked down, we realized that we're two. We're gonna make it. Like, one was there to pick the other one up, and just not getting discouraged, or realizing that you will get discouraged, but you can come back from it. That would be my advice to myself.
Very good. All right, guys. What is the best way that people can connect with you?
Man, there's a lot. Go ahead, John.
We're at MarioItaliano.com, which is the name of our game, Mario Italiano for Families. We're also at BooyahSquad.com, BooyahSquad.com. We're on Twitter at Mario Italiano US. My personal Twitter is at ControllerHead3 on Twitter. Is there any other way, Michael?
Well, we're on Facebook. You can just look up Mario Italiano. You'll find our logo. And then, other than that, you can visit the blog by all means. The blog is booyahsquad.tumblr.com. And the blog, like I said, we've been very transparent with what we've done there. We've got our story from, kind of like we shared today, all of our challenges, how we overcame them. We've got all of our development stuff on there, why we made choices, how it balancing currency systems, balancing stat systems, everything that we labored over is on there in full transparency. So, if you want some good dev blog stuff, go there and eat it up. And if you have any further questions, leave us comments, and we'd be glad to help. So that's one way. Other than that, if you are interested in beta, that should be live within a week or so. We'll have a debugged version where we're pushing it out. You can sign up at Preapps, or just message us via our website. If you go to Preapps, just look up Mario Italiano. We're on the first page. So check it out.
All right, very cool. And more than likely, by the time this episode airs, the beta will already be live. So
perfect.
We'll make sure you go and check that out. So guys, I appreciate you taking the time and coming on, and be in touch. Let me know how things are going once this thing launches.
Awesome.
Thanks for having us. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, we appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure. All right, guys. Well, you have a good one.
Thanks.
All right, you too.
Have a good one. Bye.